You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important, useful information on issues facing baby boomers, which I fall right in that category, of course, their parents and other loved ones. We have another great show this week, but I first want to thank everybody for just all their support. I mean, we know you're supporting us because you either are listening to us on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Stitcher, or many of you have downloaded our free app, which you can do if you haven't. You could do it on your iPhone or Android phone. Just type in Boomers Today and you'll get all the interviews. Of course, we are also on radio stations throughout the country, so you might be listening to us right now on your favorite radio station in your local community. So again, thank you all for your support. And as I said, we're getting, I think, that great support because we have wonderful guests. And we have another wonderful guest with us today. We have with us Janet Gallin, who has been producing and hosting her own talk show called Love Letters Live since its inception on KUSF in San Francisco. It started in 2005, radio talk, and has written a column for theexaminer.com by the same title. She also leads workshops and provides consultation to private and corporate clients. Janet is also very grateful in letting others shine as she's been able to translate this into her life's work. So Janet, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, dear. Excuse me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about something that I know is so important in life.
It is. I think it's just wonderful. You know, we've so I want to learn too. So tell us a little bit about love letters. What's that all about? How did it start? What happened? And tell us a little bit more.
Thank you. Let's just start with what a love letter is. And
okay.
This is, of course, all in my opinion and in my experience of many years of doing this. A love letter is your truth put to paper in the most loving and compassionate way. A love letter is your best self put to paper. And people say, so what is your best self? Well, here's what I say. I say your best self is that part of you that can see the best in others and then bothers to put it on paper and mail it. And I think, a love letter is something that is mailed, and it's just received as a gift in your pile of mail. Who should it be for? Absolutely anybody you have a wonderful thought about, a wonderful memory about, anyone you want to invite into your life. Any apologies, they're fabulous love letters. It's just anything you want to say can be really under that category. Most are not romantic, in my experience, although romance and just every once in a while a nice little invitation to real lust is delightful. You have to be careful what you ask for.
Right.
That it's not more than you can give.
So,
but, these are all...
Yeah, I was going to say, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but give us an example, Janet. So a family member contacts you and says, I want to write this love letter, or you're guiding them on how to write their own love letter? How does it all work?
Yes, very often. The workshops are just that. I recently did one, and this is so relevant today. I recently did a workshop on writing love letters to the dying. Now, you would think that people would find this maybe a little too grim to take part in. Well, it turns out, no, they did not. And what I know and what I see again and again and saw in this workshop, people are about to lose someone they love. This is just horrible. This is just horrible. And yet, when they started to write these love letters to people who were dying, their faces relaxed and their fists unclenched and their breathing started to be smoother and they started to smile. Some people were laughing at the memory, and I'll tell you why, because bathing in the positive does wonders.
Right.
People were having a whale of a good time writing to the dying.
And I would think that somebody who's far apart geographically, and
yes.
maybe somebody could be dying or they're ill, and writing that letter makes them feel good because maybe they can't be there. Is that right?
Well, today they can't be there.
Right. Especially
You know,
in
today,
isolation. Yeah, right.
We get so many of our cues from the news, and if I may, I'd like to say, I watch the news like we all are right now, and I see that people in care facilities, people in, first of all, the number of deaths of people in facilities is just huge, and these people are dying alone because their families can't come visit them. For all they know, they've been abandoned. Some of them don't understand why they no longer have visit. And I will tell you that it is not, and maybe you've seen this, I don't know, but it is not unheard of for a person who is very old and at the end of life, maybe a 93-year-old who's in a care facility, and, well, I'm going to end up crying, but that it's not so unheard of for a person to feel there's no need to go on.
Right.
There is no need to go on. My life doesn't mean anything to anyone anyway anymore. And then suddenly the reason that they need to go on comes to them in a letter from a grandchild or a child or a friend. Mm-hmm. And my father, who was a surgeon, used to say to his residents, do you not know that how a patient feels about his recovery has a great deal to do with whether or not he recovers?
Right.
The emotional side of it. And I'm not saying that, this is a magic thing that everyone's going to recover, but my goodness, you can ease the way, you can encourage, and I know that this works wonders.
So are these letters, usually what's the length of the letters? Or is
that's
it all,
a good question. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
The length of the letter is really, you have to consider how much that person can take in. Sometimes, from children, I love you, Grandma, I love you, Grandpa, whatever your word for Grandma and Grandpa is, I love you, and sign it and send a picture. Have your children send a picture they drew, send an old photograph. People relate to photographs even when they cannot remember much at all.
Right.
And I have seen, and maybe you have too, I have seen people as they take their last breath, they have passed from this earth and they are clutching a love letter or a photograph.
Right.
They're holding it.
And do you recommend that you coordinate with somebody to read them that love letter?
If you have to, yes.
Yeah, because maybe they get it and they can't even open the letter, or they're weak,
right.
or
and
whatever.
I've done this, by the way, with my brother recently, who's in a memory care facility. Absolutely, and it makes a difference.
Yeah.
But can I tell you a story about children?
I would love
and
to
love
hear
letters?
Yeah, absolutely.
For those of you who are home with your children now, day after day after day, they're learning online and they're isolated. The truth is, they are isolated from their friends, and you can learn a lot online. But the reality is that there's a human warmth that's missing, and however good it is, there's something missing, and you can recapture this human warmth by writing a love letter. And I'm saying love letter, but we can say, compassion. It doesn't matter. Gratitude letters or love letters. And I once did, a few years ago, a love letters workshop with a group of 5-year-olds. It was a kindergarten class. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be great. And these are kids who have never seen any message delivered that didn't involve thumbs flying across a little tiny keyboard on their parents' iPhones. Right. And I didn't know what this was. So anyway, I go in and I introduce myself and I start off. There's this Arlo Guthrie song about sending a letter.
Right.
And it is a wonderful thing. And I hope I don't know if I can find it here, but anyway, it's essentially I'm going to put a stamp up right on my head and mail myself to you. So anyway, I'm singing this song to them because I thought, okay, they're little kids and singing a song, what a nice way to start. And I say, I'm going to send myself to you. And Aaron, little boy, rings out loud and clear, not send, mail. Mail. And the teacher said, Aaron, that's rude. And I said, no, Aaron, that is not rude. Thank you. There's a big difference. Mailing something is critical.
Right.
And anyway, then we went on. We had an hour, and I kind of explained what it was. I brought stationery and stickers, and these children who had... so one of them raises her hand, and she says, with her little face totally crumpled, she said, "Can I write a love letter to my dead cat?" Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Then another hand goes up,
That's
and
great.
the question is, "Can I write a love letter to air?" I said, "Yes, and you should, because without it, you'd be," and he says, "dead."
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Talk about gratitude. Children are so sophisticated. Some of these kids in an hour wrote 4 little love letters to people. They couldn't get enough of it.
Right.
They chose the sticker. They chose the stamp, because that envelope is the first. It's the first "here I am," and it's the love letter. So when you're home with your children, I think it's and it doesn't matter how young, really. Take an hour a day for letter writing time. If an hour a day is too much, take an hour every couple of days and write a letter. Pick someone, and the grown-ups too. Write a letter to someone, and it takes a little planning. And here's a good exercise: you take a scratch paper first, and you write down. By the way, a love letter that says "You're so special" doesn't mean anything, but the reasons you're so special mean the world.
Right.
Write down everything that's special about that person. Everything that you remember, every memory, every walk you took, when that grandma used to take you swimming. It doesn't matter, whatever it is that she made the best chocolate chip cookies you ever, put it down. And when you have all these things written down, you will see there you have your love letter. So how long it can be just "I love you." It can be a page long. It's better, I think, to send 3 of them than one that's too long to absorb.
Mm-hmm. Spread it out a little bit. Yeah.
Now, spread it out. We may not be able to spread it out too long today.
Right.
But if, I saw today in the news, the New York Times is talking about the deaths, and it says what you can do: write condolence letters, for sure. Write condolence letters to the families. But start before you need to write condolence letters.
Yeah, and I would think, it's a couple things. I mean, especially in what's going on today, somebody might be listening to this, a year from now, from the time we're doing it. But today we're in an environment where people are isolated, and so that there's certainly time to write those letters, right? And there's time.
We have more time. That's right, we do. But even when this is over and we are, God willing, back to normal, this is still important. You're still going to have your grandparents and your great-grandparents in care facilities. They may not remember much. They may feel abandoned. You can help.
Right.
You can help.
No, I think it's great. Today with the social media and emails, getting a letter's kind of nice, isn't it? Just getting.
Well, it turns out. Yeah, it turns out that it's more than kind of nice. But I gotta say that email is wonderful. I'm personally addicted to it. I didn't think I was going to want to do texting. I'm addicted to it. I love it all for the immediacy. But you can't reread a phone call, and whatever you put today on email, technology changes faster than we would need it to for certain things, and you're not going to be able to access what it is somebody wrote to you on an email 10 years ago.
Right.
That's going to be gone.
Yeah.
But I have letters. I have copies of letters that were written almost 100 years ago, and Frank, they are as readable today as they were the day they were written.
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
So
I come across things that even I'm sure we all experience it. I've lost both my parents, but when I come across something that they wrote in their writing,
I know. Thank you.
Even like a recipe that my mom wrote out in her own writing. Oh my God, I cherish that. I cherish that.
That's right, and handwriting is king.
Yeah.
But a letter, a handwritten letter, and by the way, an indelible ink and good paper is still the best storage system. I have a friend, and one of my guests on Love Letters talk about handwriting, which I talk about a lot. She couldn't find her mother's. Her mother had died when she was, too young. I mean, my friend was an adult, but still, and they were very close. She couldn't find her mother's recipe for chicken soup. Mm-hmm. It was Pesach.
Right.
And she was hysterical, and she couldn't, and she calls her sister, and I can't find it, and the sister says, well, I have the recipe. I'll just send it to you. She said, no, I need the card. I need Mommy's handwriting.
Yeah, that's great.
That's right, everyone.
So Jana, we're going to take a real quick break. All right, just
Okay.
to recognize our sponsor, we're going to come back, and I want you to share with people how they can learn more about your, what you're doing and your website and all of that. So we're going to come back in just a moment. And I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, an elder care consulting organization that has a national network of professionally trained and experienced local advisors to assist families in determining the right path for your loved ones. They'll discuss various long-term care options, whether it's in-home care, assisted living, memory care, or if you just need an advocate to get some advice from, a local Senior Care Authority advisor can help you now. So for a free initial consultation with an advisor in your area, contact Senior Care Authority at 888-809-1231, or you could go directly to their website at www.seniorcareauthority.com, and you could find an advisor in your area. We're back with Janet Gallin. Janet.
Thank you.
Janet produces and hosts the talk show called Love Letters, and we're talking about that very subject matter. So Janet, tell us a little bit more about your organization. How can people learn more, and how can they reach you, and how does that all work?
Okay, so excuse me, my website is Love Letters, plural, Love Letters Live at Comcast.net, and my podcast, my talk show, most all of the episodes, I mean, I can't go back the whole 15 years or whatever it is, but there are many of them on my website, and people can listen to it. It's loveletterslive.com, and that's the website to go to. And there are just lots of inspirational people to listen to. Every life's episode, every one of life's episodes has within it the seeds of a love letter to someone. Whether it's tragic, whether it's delightful, it's got the seeds of a love letter. And every letter you write is your own history documented in your own hand, and very often it's world history.
Yes.
And
go ahead. No, go right ahead.
I just wanted to get back to writing from within isolation. We're putting up with a lot. We're experiencing things we've never experienced before, and I want to suggest that people who are home with children every day, and spouses and sweethearts and whoever you're allowed to be with in your own home, write love letters to the people who are just right there, but mail them so that person gets a gift in the mail. It's an incomparable gift. And then when that person gets your love letter, you get out of the way. Because reading a love letter is private. Mm-hmm. Sure, you know what's in it, but it's pretty awful to read a person a letter while that person is staring over your shoulder. It's just awful. You can't do it. Yeah. And they're private. But also, you can write one to yourself, and you should. I just got an email this morning from a Love Letters Live guest, Mickey Smith, and he said, I just found this letter. He said, I've made it a habit over the last few years, and I'd love to think I have something to do with it, but it doesn't really matter, that whenever there's something challenging about to face him or that has faced him, he writes himself a little love letter. That's nice. Congratulating himself for having gotten through. And he found one of a couple of years ago, and it was so instructive. And by the way, we are living in times of miracles. Make copies of the love letter you send.
Right. Make
copies or take a cell shot, and don't leave it on your cell phone. Print it up and stick it away.
Yeah. So the the guests that you have on your show are people that have written love letters and you're talking about it, or who are your guests? Let's talk about that.
Well, okay, so I am a fearless busybody, and when I hear about somebody, I just call. I read something in the newspaper that's a little bit heroic, a little bit just interesting. I call and invite people to be a guest on the show. Sometimes people recommend people. Mm-hmm. And there's just an endless supply of people who are generous enough to share. One of my guests, it doesn't even matter. Look up Joshua Abramson when you get to the website. Right. People have so much to say, and everyone I've ever spoken to, ever. And I say, if you were to write a love letter today, who would get one? Sometimes I've stopped people on the street. I'm just curious. everyone has one that they intend to. Huh?
Can you think of any one or two of your favorites? Either your favorite interviews or your favorite love letters that you like to share?
I can't do that because out of 12, 14, whatever it is, 14 years, they are all favorites. But I will tell you one woman, way in the beginning, I read about her. And a Vietnamese family who had just come here, and the parents were working in a jewelry store in Sacramento. She was going to school. She was in her first year at Berkeley. 5 siblings still at home. She gets a call one day. Sibling, one of her, the older one, is hysterical. Mommy and Daddy are dead. They're dead. And she just couldn't make head or tail of this. And it turns out a gunman, a robber, had walked into the jewelry store and shot them both dead.
Oh, no.
And here is this 19-year-old who's got 5 younger siblings, and, in the midst of just indescribable grief and fear and everything else, she goes to court and battles to keep all the kids so she can raise them. She doesn't want them split up in foster homes. She wins. 19-year-old is now raising her 5 little siblings. Wow. And if you can go to the website and put in Trang, T-R-A-N-G, you might be able to hear her. At some point, what I always do at the 25-minute mark, I say, who gets your love letter today? Listening to this woman, I could barely speak. I mean, I was so choked. And I managed to get out, who gets your love letter today? Truth is, Frank, I couldn't see one. I could see a hate letter to God, sure. Mm-hmm. I could not see a love letter. And she said, without missing a beat, she said, I want to write a love letter to my siblings to thank them. And I said, to thank them for what? Letting you raise them? She said, yes, exactly. She said, in my culture, we do not say these things out loud, and I need them to know.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very sweet. Anything? That's a great story. Well, it's a sad story, but a great story. But
it's a sad story. But there are always, every story has something enormous to teach us.
Yeah. Anything else stand out that you could think of?
Oh gosh,
I know there's
so many.
You've been doing it a long time. Yeah, but I love hearing this. Yeah.
Joshua Abramson. Yeah. I read about him or heard about him. He has taken it upon himself to make "I love you" the default greeting to replace "hello." And interesting. So we're sitting and we're recording this thing, and I said, couldn't help it. I said, you sound like a lunatic. You know that, right? And he laughed, and he said yes. And then 10 minutes later, this was the sanest person I've ever spoken to, maybe. He wants to do this. He took it to Washington, D.C. He spoke to Congress about it. Nancy Pelosi was all over it. It's people know that they are no longer being civil. They know that they're not paying enough attention to the person they're talking to.
Right.
And it's just, his name is Joshua.
Yeah.
If people care to go and put that, everybody has something so important to say.
Yeah. So what do you suggest to people that are listening going, wow, what a great idea. I want to send something right now to my grandfather or my whoever. What steps can you give them right now?
Good question.
Yeah.
What I do in workshops is the first step is you get that envelope, you address it, and you stamp it before you do anything else. People, we're all not so concerned about, wasting 50 cents or $1 here and there. We probably don't even notice it very often. No one will waste that 55-cent stamp. Somehow that doesn't get thrown away. It motivates you. The next thing is to put down your goal, just on a piece of scratch paper. The next thing is to put down every specific memory and thing that you know about this person. If this is a grandparent, what about the bravery that this grandparent showed in leaving a country that was persecuting them? Right. And coming here. What about recognizing all the strengths? People like, here's a wonderful example. Before I actually started this, I was with a group of friends, and we went to see a woman, a close friend of ours, we worked with her, who was dying of stomach cancer. We walked in to find her propped up. She was the color of chalk. Her beautiful face was sunken to just the bones, and there was an emptiness there. One of us, Nancy, looked at me and said, I wrote her a love letter. I wrote her a letter. Can I read it to her? I said, absolutely. Nancy started to read Marion the letter, and as she read it, remembering all of their life together as young parents, and we were working together, as she started to read it, color came back into that beautiful face. Her eyes brightened. She smiled, and that letter, oddly enough, was not even a goodbye. It was a hello, and it took her back to her strongest self.
Yeah.
And she was happy hearing it.
That's wonderful.
So anyway, yes, get it, and then mail it and stamp it. And while you're writing to these people in old age homes, and having your children write to them, and having your children write to each other, you might want to write a letter to the staff who is taking care of the people at the old age home.
Yeah, that's nice.
We don't call them old age homes anymore. I'm so old, that's what I still call them.
Assisted living or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Write a letter to the staff, especially today. They're risking their lives taking care of people.
Right.
You know? Write a letter to them. I've done a couple of these, and I'm telling you, the responses I get, I feel I should not get a gold star for doing something normal. And I'd like to see it all become more normal.
And I would think you probably tell people either make a copy or take a picture of it, so at least you have it before you mail it.
That's what I was saying that before, because you might want to know what you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Years later.
Exactly.
You know, somebody's going to find your letters. They're going to be in people's bedside tables. They're going to be in a shoebox. They're going to be in a treasure chest somewhere. Right. And what you're going to know is, from the letters you write today, you are going to know something important about the people you have written to, and you're going to know, future generations are going to know, but they're also going to know something about you, dear writers. Yeah. They're going to know that even in a time where you're surrounded by fear and isolation and death, you took the time to think about someone else and say, I love you and I remember everything good about you.
I could talk to you all day about this, but unfortunately we're out of time. So everybody check out loveletterslive.com. Janet, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me talk about something that I know is so important. Thank you, dear.
It certainly is. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on Boomers Today. Please be safe out there, and we'll talk to you all next week.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.